You will be on the screen. And there he is. We knew that you were going to come.
There you
Oh,
go. Hi,
Dan,
everybody.
this is great.
It's a pleasure.
Oh,
Pleasure.
oh my goodness, Dan, do you know Harry?
No.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Harry. How you doing?
Doing great. Where are you?
I'm in New York.
Okay, beautiful.
And you?
Orlando, Florida.
Cool. Or warm.
Same
Warm,
time
yes.
zone.
Yes.
Still summer.
And where are you, Christine?
I am in Oregon, so I'm on the Pacific coast.
Oh boy.
Nice.
Okay.
And
Great.
sometimes you have to say that because when you get into the middle states,
They might not know.
and I'm like, which one is higher than the other? And
Yeah.
so, it's if I got over there, I would want a paper map because I'd want to know which direction I'm pointing when I say I just came from that direction.
Sure.
Oh my gracious. This is
Yeah.
great. I keep throwing out invitations and they blow in the wind and they end up on your porches and you come to the table. And
Mhm.
That's a great way
I'm
to do
so
it.
grateful.
So it was
Yeah.
like some leaves blowing up on the porch. Nice.
Right. And guess what? I just said, Alipio, I don't know if you could hear us at the moment, but I said I keep throwing these invitations into the wind and they end up, and one of them got stuck on your porch and you opened the invitation and said, oh, okay, I'll come to the table and talk to you guys. Alipio, we know now that Harry, well, both of them are on the East Coast. Where are you currently? And I can see your mouth moving, so it's possible that
He is definitely muted.
he
It
will
seems
fix
like.
it. Oh, not quite yet. You know what? We'll keep going, and when we hear your voice, we will. Yeah, with me, it's usually I haven't put this cord all the way in.
I'll just pop in and say,
Yeah.
just go ahead and if you've hit the little gear button, the settings at the bottom, you can make sure you choose the right microphone.
Oh, yes, he's had to do that for me as well. That magical man who just came from nowhere is my husband. He is my producer. He is the one that said, when I said, here I am serving in all these homes and the people that are near me are my age and I keep hearing similar things. Jump in and talk anytime you went to Alipio. Did it resolve? And I said, I just want to teach a seminar on this. And Dan, you have maybe a similar experience. Harry, I'm going to start with Dan. Dan, I know it's about music, but it's more than music. Did you have a similar experience where you thought, I should teach a seminar on this? I should write a book. I should have a course somewhere. Did that happen to you?
Well, I mean, yes, definitely. You're inspired at some point where there's a gap or a need or something's not really working the way it should, right? So, absolutely. I hit that point when I was setting people up with their own music in nursing homes as a volunteer, and nobody was really responding to it to what was really going on, and my family, my friends said, "Oh, how nice, Dan, you're bringing the old people music." And I go, "No, no, 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 no. This is really bigger than that, and more impactful and significant within healthcare and people's lives." And so, that's when I got a filmmaker to come in for a few hours into a nursing home, and that ended up, and we filmed Henry. And you can't make something go viral, but it went viral. And, communicating with others, watching people, letting people for themselves see others light up, with their own music, being reconnected. That even though you have dementia, does not mean you can't remember You may not recognize your own family member, but you will recognize and often start singing the words exactly correctly to a song you knew from when you were younger.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's been my mission: is how do we make everybody aware so that they use the right music in the right way to improve people's lives, regardless of their physical or cognitive status.
So someone just jumping in going, well, I'll turn on a radio, or I'll say, sing this with me. Come on. It's like, well, this isn't working. Maybe that was a, one-time thing, or he, just is a dementia whisperer. There's a person who calls themselves a dementia whisperer. And you're saying, no, there are specific things. I've noticed a pattern. I've researched this. These are the ways that you can reach a person and let them have the opportunity to reach out. I love that. Oh my goodness, Harry, for the things that you are involved in, do you have a moment, as like a 12-year-old where you were like, I know what I'm going to be doing? Or was it one of those 41-year-old moments where you're just like, hey, I've got something more to contribute here.
Yeah.
What was yours like?
Well, I think it was more like the 41-year-old thing, but I was late 50s. And, I really am interested in Dan's story here, because I'm thinking about this Henry story where Henry, was he listening to music and he just started singing, or did he play an instrument in the past?
So here's a guy who was in a good nursing home for like 8+ years. And most of the time he spent it with his head down, didn't communicate.
Oh,
And people thought that was just where he was at. And they didn't realize. So then one day, playing Cab Calloway tune just sort of jolts him. And then the song stops. And then he starts talking a blues streak. Yeah, when I was 8 years old, I had to take over for the family. My father died. She had 8 kids. I had to go to work, boom. And music, is great. It's lovely. He just like nobody expected it. And it was, and so that just shows, the way people respond when they're taken out of their environments, and they're also looked at as being kind of an empty shell. And there's no one home anymore, and they don't know, whatever. So it just feeds on itself, and people just, well, why bother? I'm just out of it now.
yeah.
And that's what happens.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah. Hello, Alipio. That was Harry. I agreed with you. I'm just like, I wished I could say, I've seen Henry. Boy, everyone should see it. So Dan, be prepared to let us know how we can find it or buy it or something. But Alipio, I invited you. I sent you an invitation on purpose because Joyce Waterhouse invited me to a clubhouse, which I look at on my phone. And I saw you there and I thought, well, I'm not shy. And I let you know. And you said, sure. Is that regular for you? Is that your the way that you've decided that you're going to approach life, or have you just always been that way?
Well, my background is 29 years in software development and that tech industry. I've worked with Microsoft. I did a project for Boeing. And I've worked with big IT departments like Paramount Pictures and stuff like that. But then in 2019, I was morbidly obese, a type 2 diabetic, and the eat less, exercise more typical prescription wasn't working for me. So I put on my software developer hat, did my research, established a partnership with an endocrinologist at the School of Medicine at USC, and I started studying fasting here in the United States and Europe, put together my own protocol, cured my type 2 diabetes in 4 months and 6 days, and became medication free. So I've been doing R&D now for 3 years. I just hired a business coach, and I'm going to start developing the consulting side, launching in January. Probably I'm going to be focusing on people that have are undergoing chronic beast mode, which, is usually came out of the tech industry where you have impossible deadlines, never enough resources, and you do what it takes to get the project done. But people develop long-term health consequences for that. So I've been busy doing market research interviews to understand the terminology and stuff from the consumer side. So, but essentially, what you may be interested is that I've been running a beta support group for a year and a half, and my clients range from 49 to 77. So I have been utilizing your body's natural repair and rejuvenation systems, specifically for your audiences and anti-aging. There's a lot of new research coming out. Again, being a logical guy, I look at all the studies out of National Institutes of Health. But then because of my software background, I kind of step beyond that. Because it's sort of like, okay, there's a scientific rationale. Why don't we try this? And that's not the typical medical establishment, because it's all about consensus, right? Don't get too far ahead of your skis. So I've had interesting conversations with PhDs all around the world who are interested in my work. So in regards to anti-aging, how to maintain your health span as long as possible. Right, because that's essentially where the medical establishment is going right now, because it used to be lifespan, right? But then once we got those technologies, people are suffering. It just seems to extend their suffering as they get older. So now the focus is how do we maintain quality of life until that, and shorten that period of suffering before we pass away. So that's where the current emphasis is in terms of research and medical establishment. And sorry, I get on my soapbox about these things.
I feel like, like I'm opening a scroll, and it's just, I'm like, what else and what else and what else? And you've touched on this many things. So yay for replay.
Yeah.
Oh my gracious, Harry Spate, what made you go, ding, he just talked about, because you've had a lot of, what stood out to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I love both of these guys, the conversations here. So I'm a naturally curious person. So I'm learning here that I've got to play more music and start playing music and expand my brain and take up fasting. So these are two topics that I could have on my podcast easily. But yeah, I mean, you guys are making a big difference. And, when you step out of the norm, I mean, I just watched someone that I've known for my entire life. Towards the end of his life was, getting body parts chopped off. And, I just like, how long do you do this? Right. It's just not, just go. Right. And I mean, I watched my father pass, 10, 12 years ago, and he made the decision that, look, I'm not going to do anything. Give me the 3-day tour and I'll be done. I lived a great life. And that showed me that, I'm not going to hold on. Not every day, when you're at that moment, does every day matter? I like to think that the life prior is what really mattered, and then go out with dignity. And that's easier on your family, and, they're going to have to feel the pain eventually. So it's like pulling the Band-Aid off, in my opinion, but who am I? But I like where that conversation went, because you just affirmed what I was thinking, that it's really about the quality of life, not the length of life. Having, my mother lived until she was 100, in her 100th year. In the last year and a half, I was like, stop taking the medicine. Right. So, just go peacefully instead of being miserable. And I have family members that are like, well, she needs the meds. So anyway, that's all part, even though I do this thing called Selling with Dignity, it's about living with dignity. And both of you guys nailed it. So good stuff.
So Harry's looking at his parents, his friend. He's picking out the parts that that resonate with him, or that he envisions for himself. Dan was looking at Henry, but not just Henry. He was listening to his family saying, "Oh, that's really nice of you to do that." And it was, but you saw that there was so much more. Lipio, you looked in the mirror and took what you were already completely equipped to do and scienced it and flow charted it, whatever, and said, here's a result. This happened. Go over here, try this, put this together. And now you have a planet of PhDs going, more, put this together for us. And you all describe your situations in engaging ways. And I just keep thinking, I threw these invitations out and I get to sit here on the same screen with you guys. This is, can I just sit in awe for a while? Who wants to talk next? Dan, is it your turn?
Yeah, I think it's Dan's turn.
It's my turn. What would you like to hear?
Does someone just fall into your mind right now, and that moment of I'm either glad that I pursued this, or even you pulled back and said, man, am I just pushing too much on this? Am I trying to create something that just ought not to be created? Anything like that?
Oh, well, I know, having started this really just in 2006, and built it, and trained like 5,000 nursing homes and hospitals and hospices and home care organizations and adult day programs here and across the U.S. and elsewhere. And but it's only a drop in the bucket. In other words, in the U.S., there are 44,000 long-term care settings. And that means if I've trained 5,000, that means, the other 39,000 is saying, no, we don't have to give people their own music and have that joy or whatever. And so my focus is now on policy. The only way, there are a certain group of people that will do the right thing. They'll walk the walk. Oh, I believe in this. We got to give our residents, whatever, our patients, the best care and living with dignity as much as possible. But there are other priorities for many others, right? So they've been taken over by hedge funds, and so it's all about the dollar and keeping the beds filled. And so if it's money, bottom line, versus patient care will not be a priority. So it requires policy. If there's policy that everybody has to have 3 meals a day and get their meds on time, that's what's going to happen across the board. So if you're someone, or you have a relative going into a nursing home or assisted living, you want their experience, their journey, whatever's going to happen to them, it's enormously variable. It could be a great experience or a terrible experience. There's no faith. When you go to the gas station, you get the gas. You know what you're going to get. If you go to a psychiatrist to sit down for an hour, or a counselor, or you know what you're going to get more. You're going to get somebody who's going to listen. There's a process there. But when you go into residential care and you have dementia, or even if you don't have dementia, the experience is going to be wild. If you're in bed, the experience is going to be wildly different. There are about 15,000 people who are in a vegetative state across the 15,000 nursing homes. And they just left to sit all day. So what's going to happen with these folks? Who's paying attention? There are one person out of 100 or 200 with a specific issue. And so there are just so many issues. And music, it's not just, people feel better. It turns out when people have their music, even with dementia, they fall less. Falling is a big deal. We all have those fallen, broken bones, but because your focus, even within your dementia, is better. You're less delirious. People go to hospital, a relative, and they become disoriented, and then they either shut down or, sort of get manic. And hospitals don't know how to manage that. So someone with cognitive issues goes to the emergency department. The emergency departments, they're focused on physical. What's wrong? Physical. And if they further mess up their cognitive, that's not their concern. So that's that's sort of what's going on. And because the doctors are not trained for on dementia or on non-pharmacological approaches for which there is a ton of research. So it's not like, well, we have to see the research. Well, the research is there. Music reduces the perception of pain. Nurses have known this for 20 years. The research is old and continues. But, it's quicker. Give them a pill. Give them a pill. Or give people an antipsychotic med, but they have no psychiatric diagnosis. Oh, well, it'll calm them down, but it'll also scramble their brain. So, there's just so many, and that's why the federal government says to all nursing homes, no, do not use these unless it's appropriate. Don't use them off label just because someone is upset. Maybe they're upset because they're all alone and nobody's listening to them, and they can't communicate well. So,
Dan, if you were king, would you say that music? I'm just going to call it for a moment. Music therapy should be in the policy as well as give them food and meds.
So I would say therapeutic music. So just to
Yes,
so
thank
the
you.
music therapists in the world, there are 7,000 board certified music therapists in the U.S., and about 15% of them work with older people. The rest mostly work with young people. So you have this, maybe 1,500 people or less who are spread out among these 44,000 long-term care. So they're overwhelmed in terms of ability. So it goes beyond. So that's the music therapists, they're especially trained and they have great skill sets. But most nursing homes they do not have access to a music therapist. The government does pay. So it's really just delivering music in the right way. Do people have access to the music when they were home and they had their record collection, their CD collection, whatever, their piano they played? When they left, well, you can't bring your stereo, you can't bring your radio, you can't bring can't. And you just sit here, we have music here. Okay. And then they roll everybody into a day room and somebody maybe does live music once or twice a week, or they do some karaoke. But, the week is long, the day is long, and that might not be their music. My mother was once in a hospital and it was like Christmas time, and they wheeled everybody to central area and they were doing Christmas songs. And my mother had a roommate from India and she came back crying because this is not her music. This is not her life. I feel bad. This makes me feel worse than anything. So, we have to adapt to all of the cultures and people's capabilities. So to give them music that has meaning for them. But we have to believe first that people with dementia, for instance, deserve meaning. And so we have a bit of an issue. So we have students, future healthcare professionals, social workers, nurses, doctors. If they graduate and then they come face to face with the first person with dementia, they may have preconceived notions, low levels of empathy, figure, why bother? Because they were never trained. They never met. Training does not include what do you do with someone when you're face to face who's got some sort of now 100 types of dementia, right, that they've now defined. So, and when I talk with people who have dementia, they say, like people assume we're in the fetal position already after 15 years. No, we're here. We can communicate. We may have difficulty in processing and in remembering something short term. And we set up one guy. He's got his Alexa and his Siri, and reminding him during the day. Okay, it's now 10 o'clock. Take your meds, or playing the music. He's got music. Or anyway, so I can go on and on, but just trying
to. I was thinking about Alipio, and I was thinking that phrase, "If you were king," and so Alipio, if you were king, what would you enact, having lived and discovered and now promoting all that you told us about?
Well, I spent a year and a half in Clubhouse hanging out in a specific club called MedTech Lobby, which has doctors, PhDs, venture capitalists in the health industry throughout the world. And one of the things from my unique perspective as a software guy is we've all heard people complaining about the U.S. healthcare system, that it's broken. And I say, no, from my perspective, it works perfectly. The U.S. healthcare system was not built to take care of patients. It's meant to make sure people get paid. And it works perfectly. So if I was king, I would change the incentives in the current U.S. healthcare system that would provide rewards, specifically financial incentives, to do, which is a growing movement now in the United States, which is called value-based care. meaning that you're going to get incentivized so that people visit the ER room less. They start cutting down the medications. Medication is the largest expense in Medicare right now. Is medications, and specifically, I would go after certain practices done by the pharma companies, which is, basically they buy generic manufacturers, and that's how they maintain their monopoly on certain drugs. For example, diabetic medication is the highest profit margin for pharmaceutical companies. And even though insulin was originally created by a couple of doctor scientists in Canada, and they sold the rights to a university for $1 to make sure it was available, the pharma companies basically patented the distribution system, which are those pens, and they charge $300-400 per pen. So it's those practices I would go after. So if I was king, that's what I would do.
Harry, you're the next king. I think you're going to have each of these guys on your podcast because you said that before they even gave you all this.
I know.
What else do you want, King Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I just love this conversation, and I think that, putting down barriers and just what I love here is the attitude, right? Where making impact doesn't have to be millions of people. It may end up millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people, but the reality is that you start out and you're making impact with a few, and then things can change. So I am on board with that, right? Is just don't get, if I could tell everyone, is don't think that the change you make is too small, because you're impacting me, and I can tell Christine. And so what does that mean, right? We're going to have these conversations. Those conversations spread. I mean, I think of Glenn Campbell and the music, where he was going through Alzheimer's, I believe, towards the end of his life. And, I was so touched by the fact that he could still play concerts and then he would say, well, I don't remember that one. And, then the song would start and, he'd pick it up, and it was just such a great thing. Right. So, seeing what Dan's doing, and then, I agree. I mean, I've talked to some great people who are, in the medical industry, and they say, yeah, it's a mess. And, but they're not giving up, which is what I love, right? It's like you keep working to make it better, and it may not be our lifetime, but, so what? We plant trees that the shade will never see, right? So
I wouldn't
say
be
say that again.
I wouldn't be so pessimistic, Harry.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you're talking to a guy that started in the computer industry when a computer took up an entire room.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was not that long ago.
That was not that long ago.
Right, yeah.
Just to give you an idea, right now, it's pretty much that people are getting so fed up with the current system that they're going outside of it. And there's one guy I collaborate a lot with. He's a registered nurse, but he works in consulting with the healthcare mid-management companies. They're the ones that the large healthcare systems hire to do the specific things, right? Like, if you go in for an EKG, you get this EKG specialist while in your hospital. That EKG guy doesn't usually work for the hospital. He works for a different company. So he works with those type of companies. And he said right now it's getting to the point now where people may start, getting specialized apps, pay them $20 a month and get, 24-hour access, where I already know someone who does health coaching, and she picked up a client, and the only reason is the client can't get an appointment with their gastroenterologist. She's frustrated and she needs help. So she's going to talk to my friend, who comes from a wellness perspective, but I talk to her because I think a hybrid approach is the best. Because in some cases you do need established medical science and the prescriptions, but in other ways there are certain limitations, as has been mentioned here before. But in terms of, don't be so pessimistic, Harry. I would say when people have a problem, they will figure out a solution.
Yeah.
It's my
Great.
turn to be pessimistic.
Okay.
Our half hour is gone. It's gone. Oh my goodness. I'm not kidding. I've got tears. I mean, just listening to what music does, not what it could do. And to know that you are about life with dignity and selling with dignity. And that Alipio, we didn't even talk about windsurfing. So I'm just throwing
Windsurfing.
that out there. Windsurfing, right? Right? I
Yep.
got the right person. So what I'm going to ask Dan to do is to direct message me about that movie if it is viewable. Then when I put out this replay onto LinkedIn, I can add that in. Um, I oh,
I'll
this
add
has
in
just been
11 sides.
amazing.
11 sides of the documentary, and and everybody loves it. It did win the Sundance Film Festival Audience Award, which means of the 4,000 U.S. documentaries submitted, the 50,000 people that went to Sundance picked this as their favorite documentary. So it's a guaranteed. People will love it. Watch 5 minutes, and it's only 78 minutes long. But in terms of changing perspectives,
Mhm.
it's the most. It's in terms of Alzheimer's and understanding and being positive and uplifting and inspiring. It's not a bummer movie like other sort of movies about people who have it and you watch them fade. And there's positive to that, but it's also leaves you kind of like, well, what can we do about this?
Right.
Well, I want to let you know this is already being listened to by Dr. Ron Kaiser and caregiver Anne Marie Deacus. And I don't know who all else. And of course, in replay, that's where it really starts to go out. Be welcomed to share this with someone. Have a great time. You guys are going to be talking to each other after this. So I couldn't be happier because this connecting and including thing has always been a part of me, I've been told. So I am so grateful for each of you. And like most casual conversations, I'm just going to wave goodbye because you all are busy and you've got real things that you are heading toward in the next few minutes. And so I'm just going to say thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Okay.